labor you hire or every dollar you spend on labor, you also get the gift of this allocation of overhead. So it makes labor look more expensive than it really is. And it's not just labor, but whatever the basis is. And then what do you do when you are making production decisions? You make less, and you tend to substitute away from those inputs that are overhead drivers. And then as business units start doing that, what ends up happening, well, there are fewer units to allocate the overhead to, so you have to allocate even more overhead to them, and you get even bigger distortions. So my preferred approach is, rather than allocating overhead, set profit objectives for each business unit that will allow you to cover the overhead. You know, keep your costs according to what your economic costs really are, but, you know, so if you've got a certain amount of overhead that needs to be covered, say you've got, your business unit has a profit objective of this, excluding overhead, and, you know, we expect your profit objective to be sufficiently high that it will cover our overhead costs when spread around your business units. Otherwise, you do get distortions. You get unit costs appearing higher than they really are, and you end up making production decisions that raise your real costs. And neither of those things are very good. And both will end up with distortions in price that will cause price to be higher than it necessarily needs to be. Now, in some competitive environments, that can be a good thing, because, you know, if you think your costs are higher than they really are, and everybody in the industry thinks that, it may discourage them from cutting prices down to the bare bone. But in general, I would rather have that be a strategic decision rather than one that is driven by a lack of understanding about what costs are like. Okay, that said, fixed costs and overhead do enter into some production decisions, and there are, you know, one is the shutdown decision. It looks like I did resize the text on this very well. Okay, a shutdown decision should be made if you are not covering what? Should you shut down if you're not covering your fixed costs or your overhead?
Yes.
Not in the short run. In the short run, the decision should be, are you covering your variable costs? Okay? So if you are covering your variable costs and then some, you are offsetting some of your fixed costs and your overhead. Okay? So what you want to look at is, you know, is my revenue per unit times the number of units, P minus C times quantity, greater than my semi-fixed costs? Okay, because my semi-fixed costs and my unit costs, those are my costs of production. So profit, marginal profit, if you will, or variable profit, is equal to P minus C times Q minus your semi-fixed costs, which is a function of the quantity. Okay, so you want this to be positive, or at least not negative. Okay, if this is not negative or positive, you are covering your fixed, or you're covering your variable costs and possibly some of your fixed costs. Okay, if you're not covering your variable costs, then it's best to just shut down. Short term, you know, in terms of a short-term decision. Now, if you think the business will get to a point where demand will grow, and, you know, you're just in a bad patch, or if you're introducing a new product and your costs are temporarily high, you know, you can continue to operate with the expectation that this situation will get better. Okay, but this is the shutdown decision. Is if you cannot find a quantity such that this condition holds. where does fixed costs enter this whole thing? You know, you want to look at fixed costs when they are relevant, which is before you incur them. Okay? So, if you are considering getting into a business, you want to make sure you cover your fixed costs. Now, after you're in the business, the fixed costs are non-recoverable. You know, one-time costs are non-recurring. Then, you know, you're stuck with them. They're sunk. But before you get into the business, you want to make sure that you can cover them. Okay, so you want to make sure that for your target price, that you can at least break even, which means covering your fixed costs. So the difference there is you add in a fixed cost component. Okay, so this is okay. So this needs to be positive to get into the business. Once in, and you've got to cover your variable costs. That make sense? Yes.
That profit is not variable, right? That is P minus CQ. So you have
when I say variable profit, you know, this is essentially profit excluding fixed costs and overhead.
Okay.
Things that you can't avoid. So this is profit that you get from operating, which is variable. And I don't mean variable as in it's doing this.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's do a little plotting here with semi-fixed costs. You have the juice to keep going. Okay. So with semi-fixed costs, remember that we have an upward sloping total cost curve. What's the slope of the total cost curve in this range? It's equal to the unit variable costs. Okay, and then when we hit a capacity of our semi-fixed inputs, we have a jump, and the jump is equal to the cost of the semi-fixed inputs. So our total cost function includes fixed costs, so this difference is equal to our fixed cost. And it increases the slope of our unit variable costs and has jumps equal to our semi-fixed costs. Okay, so in order to look at the shutdown decision, which of these do I want to look at? Do I want to look at my total variable costs or my total costs? I want to look at my total variable costs. Okay, so if I'm looking at my total variable costs, I find that I can break even if I produce this quantity small q1, small q2, or small q3, and anything more than that I will be profitable at this price. Okay, now why do I have three different values of break even?
Because of semi-fixed costs?
Because I have different levels of semi-fixed inputs. So the more semi-fixed inputs I have, the more units I'm going to have to sell in order to break even. Okay? Now, in order to profitably enter the business, are any of these quantities sufficient? No. Why not? My total costs are not recovered at this price by any of these quantities. Okay, so if I want to cover my total costs, which includes my fixed costs, I have to produce a quantity Q1, and you know, that's the lowest quantity that I could possibly produce at this price and break even. Now, if I have, and that, how many semi-fixed inputs would be involved there? I think it means machines. How many machines would I need? I need to have three machines. Okay, so if I'm thinking about getting into this business and charging this price, I would have to say, okay, can I get in and operate profitably with 3 machines. So my investment would be for 3 machines. Okay? If I couldn't sell enough to cover what was produced by 3 machines, then I shouldn't be in this business. Okay? Now, if I wanted to buy 4 machines, I'd want to have confidence that at this price I could sell a quantity Q2. Now, what I might do is say, okay, well, this price point doesn't make quite as much sense, so I'll check another price point and see if there is, you know, another feasible combination. We'll look at how you adjust, how you do an analysis where you look at different price quantity combinations. But what this suggests is that for entry, there may be a minimum scale that you have to enter. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to come in. Okay? And if you were to lower price, what would happen to that minimum scale? It would have to be larger.
Yep.
So if this price was lower, this total revenue curve would be shallower. And that would mean you'd have to enter in at even a larger scale. That make sense? Okay. Now we're going to move on to the next handout. And this kind of dovetails on the previous discussion. I want to introduce you guys to this notion of iso-profit analysis. Are you familiar with iso-profit analysis? Have you seen this before anywhere? Good. Learn something new. Okay. An iso-profit analysis determines different combinations of prices and quantities that will yield a target profit level. Okay. Have you ever seen contour maps? You know, where they're maps of with lines of equal elevation. Iso-profit curves are sort of like that, where you're mapping a curve, you know, a surface that reflects different elevations of profit. And an iso-profit curve is like one of those contour lines. Okay, now why would we want to look at this? Well, first of all, we might want to look at it if we want to see if we can achieve different target profit levels. So if I'm looking at a price and I want to achieve a certain profit level, it'll give me some idea of how much I will need to sell at that price in order to achieve the target profit level. So in the case of the break-even analysis, I'd want to make sure that I would achieve enough revenue in order to offset my fixed costs. Okay? In the case, if I'm already in the business, I want to make sure that I can sell enough at a given price in order to cover my variable costs. Or, you know, if I'm currently operating the business and I'm considering a price change, I would want to know, well, if I changed my price, you know, how much would I have to sell in order to maintain my profit? So it gives you an idea of whether or not a price change would be viable. So how do we do that? First, you choose a profit objective. So that's like choosing an elevation. Then you choose a price. Once you've chosen the price, you want to determine the quantity that will be necessary to break even or to achieve that profit objective. Okay, so your profit target is equal to price minus unit cost times quantity minus semi-fixed cost. And if you are looking at getting into the business, you might include fixed costs. That's kind of in parentheses. If you're already in the business and that's sunk, then you don't want to include this fixed component. Okay? So the quantity required essentially comes from solving this equation for Q. Okay, so the quantity required is equal to your target profit plus your fixed stuff divided by your unit contribution margin. And that's how you do break even. It's your fixed stuff divided by your contribution per unit. Question?
So why is it that always quantity is found out in that we can reduce the cost, we have a higher margin with a lower quantity? There are so many unknown variables out there. Why did you pick only quantity?
Well, often